Good evening, members, and welcome to this virtual council meeting of the 17th of December 2020. Could we start with the webcast introduction? Could I ask Gary Woodhall to take us, please, to take this item?
Thank you, Chairman. The Chairman would like to remind everyone present that this meeting will be broadcast live to the internet and will be capable of repeated viewing or other such use by third parties. Therefore, by participating in this virtual meeting, you are consenting to being filmed and to the possible use of those images and sound recordings for webcasting and/or training purposes. If there are any members of the public who are present who do not wish to have their image captured, they should ensure that their video setting throughout the virtual meeting is turned off and set to audio only. In the event that technical difficulties interrupt the virtual meeting that cannot be overcome, the Chairman may need to adjourn the meeting.
Thank you, Gary. Item 2, minutes. Members, apologies received by our lovely Jackie Leather, who herself unfortunately contracted COVID-19, but fully recovered, thank God, for receiving the minutes so late. I take it you had time to read the minutes of last meeting, and if you do not have any questions or comments, can we agree that they represent the true reflection of the meeting?
Agreed.
Agreed.
Thank you. I cannot see any.
Have a hand up for John Whitehouse.
Councillor Whitehouse.
It's just to notify members, Chairman, and Jackie Leather's aware of this, that at the bottom of page 9, it's JM Whitehouse, not JH Whitehouse. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay. Item 3, declarations of interest. Jackie? Members, please? No?
Councillor Bassett.
Councillor Bassett.
Thank you, Chairman. I should declare that for item 10, I am, of course, on the board of Qualis. So I shall participate in it and answer any questions.
And Councillor
Councillor Murray, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Because of what I want to say on item 9, the motion, I need to declare a non-prejudicial interest as a trustee of the Citizens Advice Bureau. I'm not a council representative. I'm a trustee in my own right.
Okay.
Councillor Kaufmann as well has.
Councillor Kaufmann.
Good evening. Also, I have, because of the board of Qualis, I have to declare my interest, but I would stay in the meeting for this as well, please. Thank you.
Thank you, members. Item 4, announcements. A, apologies for absence. Jackie, please.
Yes, Chairman. We have apologies from Councillor Beals, Councillor Judy Jennings, Councillor Lyon, Councillor McEwen, Councillor Mitchell, Councillor Chris Roberts, Councillor Deborah Roberts, Councillor Patel. That's it.
Thank you. Okay, item B, Chairman's announcements. Members, it is with great sadness I have to announce the very recent passing of John Scott, a very long-serving housing officer and part of the senior management through the 80s, 90s and 2000. Because of his long service to the council and the community, I would like us to keep a minute's silence. Please stay Thank you, members. John has not been well for some years now, suffering from Parkinson's, but died from COVID-19 complications in King George Hospital. Longer-serving councillors will remember that John Scott, remember John, and are very welcome to speak and reflect on his time with the council. As I said before, John Scott will always be remembered for his talents in housing. When the council started again, after 35 years, its house building projects, the first ones to start was in Harveyfields in Waltham Abbey and was named in his honour, John Scott Court. He attended the opening ceremony, very touched and proud. He was also a keen supporter of St. Clair's Hospice. On Saturday, I will attend St. Clair's Hospice for the traditional Light a Life. I will make sure I will write his name. My thoughts are with his family these very difficult times. I will start with the leader, Chris Whitbread, if he would like to pay tribute.
Thank you, Chairman. Chairman, wonderful words that you've just said. John Scott, I knew from when I first came on the council in 1998, so not as long as some other members here this evening, but he was always an officer that you had great respect for. He was an authority on his subject of housing, but more than that, he was an authority on everything to do with Epping Forest District Council, and especially around environmental services as well. If John thought you were wrong about something, he would tell you, and he would tell you in the best way possible. He was someone always worth listening to. My predecessor as leader, Councillor Di Collins, always had the greatest respect for John, and even Di would stop if John said something was, had to be done differently or should be done differently. So we always listened to John. He was missed when he left the council, and he stayed in touch. I know he went, I saw him on numerous occasions afterwards, but again, I never went away from having that deep respect for him as an individual and as an officer, but also as someone that really deserved every bit of respect that we gave to him. And particularly, he was proud when we named the flats after him in Waltham Abbey. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Caroline Pond.
Thank you very much, Chairman. I'm very sorry to hear about John and send my condolences to Margaret and his family. Thank you, Tom, for your very full account of his career in the press release. I worked with John towards the end of his career when for a few years I was a portfolio holder. The Community Safety Partnership had just been set up and John was involved in that. And during that time, Epping Forest paid towards 6 PCSOs to support the force in the district. He was very protective towards housing service, as I'm sure we're going to hear a bit later. And has been said, many of his, as has been said in that Tom Kahn article, many of the policies followed now and in the past were set up by John himself. Tom's last paragraph is very apt. He was a plain speaker with a sense of humour, caring deeply for housing and other services and for the community.
Thank you very much. Councillor John Whitehouse.
Thank you. Yeah, no, I was very sad to hear this news. I mean, as others have said, John was a great public servant and servant of the council, and because of the length of time and the services involved in particularly housing, he got to know and knew Epping Forest extremely well. The rural parts, the urban parts, the north, the south. He recognised it as a district of contrast. It wasn't all the same, and he was able to advise members and point out to members where ideas they had, perhaps would have a different impact in different areas or needed to be thought through in different ways. And as others have said, Although his career started in housing and always had that interest in housing, it also involved a much wider portfolio of interest and involvement. I remember his interest in the direct service organisation, for example, and very closely involved in that. His involvement in working with the voluntary sector and organisations like Voluntary Action, Epping Forest, which I think was called something different in those days, and his active involvement in these things, not just turning up because he had to, because that was his job, but taking a really practical and hands-on attitude to getting things done and solving problems. I mean, he's instrumental, for example, in getting the Epping Forest reuse organisation, from an idea to an actual, up and running organisation with the support of the waste management officers and the housing officers in Epping Forest, because he had that overview of how things could work. So, he left a hole in the council when he left the council for well-deserved retirement, and no doubt he leaves a hole in the memories of everyone who knew and cared for him, his family and friends. So our sympathies are with them this evening.
Thank you very much. Councillor Murray.
Thank you, Chairman. I have to say I was devastated when I received Tom's email out of the blue. That's no criticism of Tom. That was his way of informing members, and that was appropriate. But it's really hit me, Chairman. This is extremely sad news. I've known John way back to 1982. And you might ask, well, why does a newly elected councillor in 1982 get to know an officer almost immediately? I will explain, because it's one of the great successes that John Scott had. I represented the old Loughton Broadway ward in 1982, which at that time was 98% council housing. It had just transferred from the Greater London Council housing stock to Epping Forest District Council, and there were issues. And John Scott was absolutely marvellous at managing that transfer. And I think members can understand that the transfer of thousands of council houses from one local authority to another is not an easy process. And John Scott managed that with aplomb. So I knew him very early on. I am going to focus my remarks almost entirely in the area of housing, because obviously his career flourished in other areas as well. But I think anyone who knew John well knew that his real love, and certainly his first love, was with social housing and the delivery of good housing services. And that's what he managed. That is an epitaph for the man, and I think it's a fantastic epitaph. Decent social housing in Epping Forest and a good housing service. Another major issue that he dealt with that hasn't been referenced tonight, and I think it's worth mentioning, was it affected hundreds and hundreds of quite aggressive residents across our district. They had bought council houses that were pre-reinforced concrete. That was the style of building after the war, and they were found to be defective, and they weren't able to get mortgages, or buyers weren't able to get mortgages. And the council was one of the first in the country to reinstate all those previously owned council houses that were now in private ownership, so that problem could be dealt with. But we also did our own council properties, and that was the mark of John Scott. He wasn't going to just do the private ones. That was a massive, massive logistical exercise involving lots and lots of really angry people who all thought their house should be done first because they wanted to sell it and move away. And John managed meeting after meeting in the Loughton area, and I'm sure across the district with aplomb. I also got to know another side of John Scott when I did, I suppose it was late 80s, early 90s, have a few years with housing responsibilities, chairman of the housing committee, and then the housing portfolio holder. And the thing I want to reference there is two things. One is ability to explain really complicated housing legislation, and particularly housing revenue account matters, in very simple terms that lay people like myself and other members of the housing committee could understand, and also the tenants' representatives could understand. He was a brilliant communicator of good ideas. I also judge a leader by the quality of officers who came behind him, that he trained up. And I think all the members here tonight who will know the housing team that John Scott developed around him would say that it was a very, very impressive team. It's invidious to mention names, but I think it's reasonable to particularly mention Roger Wilson and Alan Hall, both junior officers under John Scott, and he developed them into the first class officers that he were. And I think my final remarks, we've already heard that his talent and drive were put to good use in the voluntary sector, and some of his voluntary sector commitments have been mentioned. I think one does need to be mentioned tonight that hasn't been. He was a trustee, and a very active, hands-on trustee of the St Clair Hospice. And again, they benefited considerably by his expertise and knowledge. So I will just conclude, Madam Chairman, by saying, rest in peace, John. My thoughts, and I'm sure the thoughts of everyone, and our prayers are with your wife, Margaret, your family, and your close friends.
Thank you, Councillor Murray. Councillor Morgan, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Well, I got to know John Scott a year after Councillor Murray, when I joined the council in 1983. John was a great help to me then, welcomed me onto the council, showed me round and helped me get fitted into the job. We've heard about his housing, what he did for the housing in the council. I got to know him fairly well when I was chairman of the Housing Appeals Panel. This is when we had all the committee systems going back over 30 years. John would always give me he wouldn't tell me what to do or tell the panel what to do, but he advised us on the policy and the legislation and guide us through those appeals panels. And some of the residents with houses weren't very polite at times, but John certainly saw us through that. But you've heard a bit about John outside the council. He did a lot for St Clair's Hospice as a trustee, but he also did a lot for Ongar Hospital League of Friends, helping raise many thousands of pounds for the hospital in his time at the council and afterwards. And we always used to see him, and only recently he still used to attend the open evenings and the events we used to have at the after the hospital got redeveloped. He also he helped me a lot when I was chairman of the council 16 years ago. And since then, after he retired, I've seen him quite often, and him and Margaret have been great friends to my wife Jean and I. And I have been asked by his wife Margaret if I do a tribute at his funeral whenever it occurs, and I'll be honoured to do that on behalf of the council. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Morgan. He will be missed, obviously. Members, it was an honour to be present to the first ever lighting of the menorah in Epping Town, and privileged to light the shamash. It is recognising the festivities of one of many and diverse faith groups in our district. As many as you already know, Julie Chandler left the EFDC after 42 years dedicated service to Epping Forest District Council. For me personally, Julie was one of the most committed members of staff I had the privilege to work with when I was portfolio holder for leisure. We spent hours discussing and monitoring the progress on the refurbishment of the museum, and I recall the excitement of the opening of the tenders for the new leisure contract that came in trolleys filling the room. So much to analyze and to understand. Julie started her career as a lifeguard and sports coach at Ongar Leisure Centre back in 1978. She was promoted an assistant manager working from the Hemel Street offices, where at its peak, the Over 50s New Horizon program had over 2,000 taking part in physical and social activities every week. Promotion again came, and as an assistant sports development officer, Julie was responsible for managing holiday play schemes across the district. Stepping up again, she was appointed leisure and promotions officer responsible for the new logos and marketing materials of all the leisure centres and the museum. Many other promotions followed until Julie was appointed service director for communities and partnerships. It must be noted that in her time, Julie personally and her teams have competitively secured around 10 million external investment, 10 million pounds external investment in council services for the community. And her services have been and continue to be models of best practice across Essex and the region. I am sure that I speak for all members that Julie was an outstanding member of staff, and we thank her most sincerely for her commitment to sport and to the district. We will miss you, Julie, but wish you well in your new appointment. And finally, members, the civic offices will be lit up in green colour, the colour of hope, for the duration of the Christmas period, 24 to the 26th of December. These are my announcements. We go to item 5, public questions. Jackie?
No public questions, Chairman.
Thank you. Item 6, questions by members under notice.
No questions under notice by members, Chairman.
Thank you. Item 7, reports from the leader and members of the cabinet. Can I actually ask Chris Whitbread, the leader, to give a verbal report?
Thank you, Chairman. Chairman, it's been a busy time since we last met. First and foremost, a lot of our efforts have been around the COVID situation. As members will know, COVID figures across the district have been rising, and I think we're now in the top 10 for the country, which is very concerning for all of us. And I'd like to thank all the officers who put lots of effort into what we're doing locally. Obviously, we've had resources and support from the county, and of course finances from government as well as part of the what we've been doing. There's a lot of pressure on our teams locally now. I know Councillor Sam Kane will mention the grants to businesses within his report, but obviously that involves our teams very heavily. There's a number of different tranches of grants out there now, but the businesses have been hit very hard by going from tier 2 to lockdown and now into tier 3, and the effect that has particularly on the hospitality trade, but also those people who fall between the cracks. And I'm thinking about the self-employed now, so there's a number of issues out there. There's also the issue of encouraging people to go into self-isolation, and the support that we are able to give through government funding for people who need our help when they go into self-isolation. So that's really important as well. What I think we have to say to all our residents now, this is about personal responsibility, and we just have to hope that over the Christmas period, people keep their travelling down to a minimum possible, keep themselves as much as they can within their own homes, enjoy Christmas, make the most of it, but do think about all those people around us, and let's try and get this thing beaten. So when we get through to the new year, particularly now that there are vaccinations, my father-in-law had his first jab today, and we're starting to see the rollout of vaccinations, and we're ahead of the game on that. And let's just hope we can get to some form of normality in 2021. On the other side of things, what really changes is on the 1st of January when we finally leave the European Union. And of course, we have signed and completed on a lease with HMRC for a customs facility at Northwood Airfield. This has been achieved within government timescales, and thanks to a really big effort from stakeholders and partners across the area, including Northwood Parish Council and of course Essex County Council, the police and highways elements, and of course the government itself. This will be operational from the 1st of January, and we will keep members posted as that progresses. The Epping civic offices, as you walk past, you'll see the amount of work that's going on there, and it's making really good progress, and it's on schedule to be completed by the 4th quarter of this year. So we're looking forward to that being open again. What I'm really looking forward to is the day we can go back in and have proper meetings again, so they're not all at the end of a Zoom camera. The recovery is high on our agenda as well, and there's been some brilliant work done by members and officers, and a number of reports that have come forward to council over recent cabinet and then on to council obviously in recent times. And I'd like to thank officers for all that they're doing for that recovery. It's really important when we come through the post-COVID period that we have an economic strategy that works. What we're doing around apprentices and the good works that are going on will set us fair for the future. Because we'll get better as we get through this, but we'll get better if we work together as we move forward. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Whitbread. I have had indication that Councillor Holly Whitbread would like to add to her report.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. A very comprehensive report from me, which I hope members have had the opportunity to look through this evening, but there's just a couple of points that I'd like to add. Just adding on to the apprenticeship part of my report, I had a real pleasure of meeting 6 of our new housing apprentices last week, who were really fantastic. A brand new team, began work during the pandemic, and it's been really impressive how they've kind of got involved so quickly, only been here for a few months. So just to welcome them, and it was great to have the opportunity to meet with them and discuss the brilliant work that they're doing across the housing service. Another thing I'd quickly like to flag as well is the Stay Well This Winter work. Earlier in the month, I met with Hetty, who's actually one of my neighbours just across the road, and gave her one of the Stay Well This Winter bags, which had useful information about staying well through the winter season, as well as hand sanitisers and torches. And they've been given out to elderly people across Epping Forest District and have been found a really useful resource, particularly at this time. The other thing I quickly want to flag is the Youth Council. As we all know, the Youth Council continue to do really brilliant work, particularly around the My Life C19 project, which the Cabinet agreed funding towards. And this is an online virtual programme to engage with young people around mental health issues, both in school and virtually. So that's a really exciting piece of work. And the Youth Council have also been involved in a Jack Petchey youth survey, which is really good to see. And the other thing I'd quickly like to add is in relation to the homeless people who we found accommodation for during the main part of the pandemic. And the good news is we've actually sourced 6 laptops from the council, so recycled laptops, for them to use, because actually a lot of these people are under the age of 25, and this is to help them into employment. And obviously during this kind of period of lockdown, it's good to have that technology available. Quickly also just flagging the museum and their excellent work at this time. They've had a really difficult time, obviously reopening and then having to shut down again. And they've got a really exciting new exhibition coming in January, which is the Natural History Museum wildlife exhibition. So really excited to see that with yourself, Chairman, in the coming weeks. And then it would be remiss of me not to mention Julie Chandler and just to thank her for many years of services. I've had the pleasure of working with her over the past year, particularly around community safety. And I know Julie is an extremely determined and dedicated officer, and I wish her very well in her new role. So thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much, Councillor Whitbread. I haven't had any indication for any other portfolio. I beg your pardon, Councillor Avey, sorry.
Well, it's rather seasonal to be called Ivy instead of Avey, so I'm quite happy to be called Ivy for now. Thank you, Chairman. Chairman, I've mentioned the new Highway Rangers service in my report, which is a good news story for 2020. There's not many of those. This service is going very well, and I think we should thank the officers involved for getting this service up and running so successfully, namely Kim Durrani and Mandy Thompson. And I'd also like to thank the Rangers themselves for their efforts. There's two examples in my report, pictures in Sun Street and Waltham Abbey, Epping High Street, which show the highly professional job they are doing. Thank you, Chairman.
Yes, thank you very much. I don't have anyone else, so I will move on to item 8. Members, may I remind you that we have 30 minutes allocated. This is questioned by members without notice. I would like to thank actually every one of you for responding to the officer's emails, indicating that you would like to ask questions. It helps me a lot to know that there is a list of councillors. Please be precise. And this
meeting is being recorded.
Please be precise. And so everyone can have a fair chance to put forward their questions. And just don't forget, there is one question per member. So we start. Councillor Les Barrows, please.
Thank you, Chair. I must say, this has been a year like no other year, and this would be a Christmas like no other. Would the Housing Community Portfolio holder like to comment on Essex County Council support for the vulnerable through the holiday hunger and welfare schemes? Thank you.
Councillor Holly Wilbred.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you to Councillor Burrows for that question. I was really pleased when Essex County Council announced the holiday hunger programmes, and obviously with the help of government funding too, to be able to roll out and provide these these programmes. We've got 2 specific programmes running in the district, one at Ongar Primary School run by the Red Balloon Foundation, and that's running on the 21st, 22nd and 23rd of December. There's going to be activities, arts and crafts for children to get involved in, as well as a healthy meal and a food parcel to take home. There will also be a programme running in Loughton in Oakwood Hill Community Centre, and that's been run by Restore Church. In addition to that, Voluntary Action Epping Forest and Essex Child and Family Wellbeing Services are also providing food parcels and support to vulnerable families during this time. I think this is a really vital service that's been provided. Obviously, this has been an extraordinarily difficult year for people across our districts and across the country. So it's good that this additional support is here. And I'm always happy to take any questions about specific schemes. And I would thank Fabrizio in particular and Jill Wallace for their work in working with Essex County Council in getting the schemes in place. And also thank you to Louise McKinley, who's the Cabinet Member at Essex, for leading on this. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Chris Pond.
Chairman, I'm very grateful to Kim Durrani for giving me a briefing yesterday on the operation of the new demand responsive and regular services which are replacing Route 87. I wonder whether the portfolio holder, I think is Nigel Avey, could advise me what is being done about linking in the Epping Forest Retail Park to Debden Broadway, because it does seem quite wrong that we should sponsor a retail park and make people go to it effectively by car.
Councillor Avey.
Thank you for that question, Councillor Pond. I don't know the answer off the top of my head, but I do agree with what you're saying. Will you let me get back to you after I've spoken to the officers?
Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Chambers, please.
Thank you, Chairman. 2020 has been a very difficult year for me personally and professionally, caring and treating patients with COVID. And it's been very difficult for many of our residents as well. But I wonder how, as we draw to a close, how the council leader would sum up his year and his performance in 2020 during the pandemic. I'd personally give us all a 10 out of 10, but it's just what the council leader might think.
Yeah.
Councillor Whitbread.
Thank you, Chairman. Chairman, that's always a hard one to answer, but I think I've answered it a number of times this year. Before I answer it, can I wish Councillor Chambers well, because this is his last meeting with us this evening. I understand he'll be stepping down tomorrow. He stayed for as long as he could after not being able to go for election in May. So may we all wish him well, so he enjoys his future career wherever that takes him. So good luck, Gavin, for the future. And thank you for all that you've done. What do I think's gone well this year, and what do I think's not gone so well? As you quite rightly said, this has been a year like no other. I can remember giving the budget for Councillor Stavrou back in January, and I said, you know, this is a really good opportunity for the future. 2020 had lots of good things going for it, and then of course the pandemic hit with full force, and everything changed from there. But what I would say is that this year has shown the importance of local government, how good our officer team are, how well that everyone, councillors and officers, have pulled together through the pandemic. Been some brilliant examples, whether or not it was the speedy way in which government grants were got out to business. We were one of the fastest in Essex. The work that was done around the welfare section, the ability to help our high streets become socially distanced, doing the job as normal against the most unnormal circumstances, learning to work from home, being agile, and just doing those extra things that make Epping Forest a little bit special. I'll give you an example this evening. Believe it or not, my first year at a junior school teacher, former chairman of the council, Mrs. Miller, phoned up Holly back in January about the fountain lights in Epping High Street, and tonight they were switched back on. I cannot tell you how much work goes into those type of things and heritage sites, and that's what makes me proud of our council. So what would I say I've got from 2020 is underlines what I already knew about Epping Forest and its staff, because they're the people we should be slapping on the back and saying, job well done, we've got a lot more to do, and there's some hard times ahead as we go into 2021. But I've got every confidence we will weather the storm and move forward. Thank you.
Councillor John Whitehouse.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, the leader in his report mentioned the progress of the accommodation project and the fact that it won't be that long until people are able to make use of the main building again. And in that light, I just wondered if you had an update on progress on discussions with the County Council on the library and whether that will be occupying space in the civic offices.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Whitehouse. That's a really good question. What I would like to say is I'm hoping sooner rather than later we can get members round to actually have a look inside the civic offices, especially now we're making such good progress. And the space that we have in mind for the library is absolutely brilliant for them. Let me put it this way at the moment, there's ongoing discussions. Negotiations are going well. We're probably negotiating a lot better than we are with the European Union. So I'm hoping that we will get a deal sooner rather than later. But perhaps by the time I come back to the next full council, I'll have some really positive news.
Councillor Heap.
Thank you, Chairman. This might be better answered under item 10. It's just a couple of quick questions, which is how many employees does Qualis have right now?
Excuse me, one question, please. One question. So choose the right one you want to ask.
Okay, how many employees have come from EFDC to Qualis, and is Qualis paying them, thereby freeing up money and positions for other people?
Thank you.
Councillor Whitbread.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. In the absence of the portfolio holder who looks after the council side of Qualis, yes, there has been staff transferred from the council to Qualis. I believe it's just one, in that would be the managing director, but I will double check that in case I've got it wrong, because there may be other supplements. But of course, any staff that go from EFDC to Qualis are paid for by Qualis.
Councillor Stephen Murray.
Thank you, Chairman. Just before I ask my question, can I just remind members, please, that I've been extremely complimentary about the role of the leader during the COVID crisis. I've done that publicly at least 3 times, and I do just want to remind members of that, because my question is a strongly worded question, but it's one that quite a few residents have asked me to ask the Leader of Council. Given that we've moved into Tier 3 and that information came on Monday, does the Leader of Council share my view and that of many other residents that our response from the MP was woefully inadequate, in the sense that her only public quote is that it's disappointing news for constituents and businesses, everything Epping Forest? So will he use his good efforts to make sure that himself and our MP can go knocking on the government's door and make sure that the businesses that he's mentioned in his report earlier, which I thought was excellent, his verbal report, they were hoping the 2 weeks before Christmas was really going to save them, and I'm talking about hospitality in particular and restaurants, are properly and fully compensated. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Chairman. Chairman, first and foremost, let me, I don't have to defend anyone's actions or anything else. I would say that straight away. But let me let members of this council know, and Councillor Murray, I was with our MP, Dame Eleanor Lang, on Friday morning. I was with her as she was preparing a letter to the Health Minister, arguing most strongly for Essex to stay in Tier 2, and in particular Epping Forest. I was meeting on a series of issues with another cabinet member at the time. Like me, she was strongly hoping that Epping Forest would have stayed in Tier 2. I know how difficult moving to Tier 3 is for our businesses. It's devastating. And it's not just devastating to the hospitality industry, it's devastating to all the feeder businesses as well. It's devastating to a lot of poor, self-employed people who have not got 3 years' accounts. It's devastating to families. This is hard, but the government, has to take tough decisions at this time. And I would argue that the government is doing its best and has done its best with funding to businesses. What it's the job of the districts to do now is to get that money out to businesses as quickly as possible. And I've got every confidence that Rob Pavey and our team are doing their utmost to do that right now as we speak. But I have every confidence, and I have to say to you, and I say this with my hand on heart, I know that Eleanor was backing Epping Forest to stay in Tier 2. I'm sorry if that hasn't been communicated clear enough, but like you, I think Tier 2 was better than Tier 3, and I wanted to see our businesses have that opportunity up to and through Christmas. But the government, and if you look at the figures now, as we're approaching nearly over 500 per 100,000, the government had to act. They had no choice. This pandemic is ongoing, and until we get it under control, we are going to be in tough times.
Councillor David Plummer.
Sorry. Yeah, thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Plummer, could you speak a little bit closer to the mic, please?
Yeah, will do. Is that better? Is that better? Oh. Hello?
You're there.
Is that better? Right, cool, thank you. At November's full council meeting, I asked if the district council would set up a social housing association as part of Qualis. I've also asked about this at a previous cabinet meeting. Our councillor Holly Whitbread provided a comprehensive reply about the council's commitment to 40% affordable housing as part of the local plan and the council house building programme more widely. Neither Councillor Whitbread or Councillor Aniket Patel, who also spoke, actually answered my question. While the council's house building programme is welcome, as is the recent decision to buy up to 28 homes, new social housing built under the council's house building programme is subject to affordable rather than a social rent. Now, affordable is a misnomer, as affordable rents are set at 80% of the market rate, which is far from affordable for many families. And also, new council homes are subject to right to buy. So I'll ask again, will the District Council commit to setting up a social housing association as part of Qualis Group, or could I be given any reasons why we shouldn't? I realise this is a question without notice again, so I'm happy to go into this at some other juncture, but I'm just frustrated. I've asked a question at 2 meetings, not being given a reason why not, or actually a direct answer. So thank you.
Okay, now I don't know if Councillor Holly Whitbread or Councillor Chris Whitbread would like to answer this.
I can come in, Chairman. Thank you. Thanks, Chairman. And thank you, Councillor Plummer, for that question. I know something that you are personally very passionate about. I'm not going to make policy off the hoof in a full council meeting. I know that Qualis, as I've said before, are committed to following the council's local plan and delivering 40% affordable housing. And of course, the district council continues with our council house building programme. What I would say is that with certain projects, we do look at different kinds of tenancies. For example, with the St John's Road project, we're looking to deliver in Epping. In the first instance, then properties would not be subject to right to buy. So we can look at different tenancies. And I do understand his concern around that. Alternatively, there's the opportunity for shared ownership with them. So as I said, I'm not going to make policy off the hoof, but I would say that, we are looking at different models of affordable housing as well. Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Wixley.
Right, thank you, Chairman. My question was actually to Aniket Patel, the Commercial and Regulator Services portfolio holder, but of course he isn't here tonight, so I can't ask the question which I had.
Okay, I understand. Perhaps you can send him an email?
Yes, that's a possibility, yeah. Unless anybody else wants to take it on board.
Chairman, I'm happy to have a go.
Please go ahead, Councillor Wixley.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's actually regarding the landmark building in the Broadway. And I noticed that for several weeks there was scaffolding up there. And it looked very much to me as if there was work being done on the cladding. So I think my concern is fairly obvious. I was thinking whether the cladding was safe from a fire point of view. And if in fact that was the issue, and would the council have to bear the cost of any work like that, or would it be down to the company who built the building would bear the cost?
Councillor Whitbread.
Yeah, Chairman, I wouldn't have thought it's Councillor Wixley's worst fears on this particular building, because it's quite modern, and obviously building regs at that time were different to even when that other block was cladded. So I wouldn't have thought it was that, but I always open to be challenged. But perhaps what we could do is get Councillor Patel to ask officers to look into it, find out what's going on. I wouldn't have thought this council would be responsible for any cost involved, but always good to have that information and find out what's going on.
Yeah, thank you very much, Chairman and Leader.
Okay, Councillor Leopard.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chairman. My question to the Leader of the Council is on behalf of a constituent of mine in Wolfham Abbey. She was wondering if he could clarify, in the light of a recent well-publicised Standards Committee case, whether he and the Council do or do not support and endorse Article 19 of the United Nations Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which states Everyone has the right to freedom of opinion and expression. This right includes freedom to hold opinions without interference and to seek, receive and impart information and ideas through any media and regardless of frontiers. Thank you.
Councillor Whitbread.
Thank you, Chairman. Everyone has a right to their opinion, and I would say that everyone has a right to be responsible with those opinions as well. And unfortunately, some people aren't responsible with those opinions. And unfortunately, I think, Councillor Leppert, you found that you were in that position. I have nothing else to say, Chairman.
Thank you. I'll pass it on. Thank you.
Councillor Janet Whitehouse.
Thank you, Chairman. My question's to the portfolio holder for Environmental and Technical Services. In your report, you mentioned that a new fleet of 24 vehicles has been provided to Qualis. I was just wondering, the council's given millions of pounds to Qualis. Why is the council providing these vehicles rather than Qualis itself? And in Councillor Holly Whitbread's report, she mentions that Qualis have asked for CCTV to be provided in the car park behind the Centric Parade. I don't understand why, Qualis aren't providing these things themselves. But to come back to vehicles, why are the council providing these 24 vehicles and not Qualis?
Councillor Avey.
Thank you for that question. I'm afraid I don't know the answer off the top of my head, but I will get back to you. And if there is an issue, I will publicise that some way to the rest of the council.
Councillor Sangha.
Thank you, Chair. My question is for Councillor Sam Kane, portfolio holder. Bearing in mind that as we now moved into Tier 3, can he confirm that the grants from the government for businesses that very much need the support right now have been distributed by the District Council? And can he also confirm how many have actually been given so far in this tranche? Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Kane.
Thank you, Chairman. And thank you, Councillor Dawson, Councillor Sunga. I'm very conscious of the problems facing our local businesses during the recent months due to COVID, and particularly the hospitality sector. The government has made available to businesses a wide range of grants for businesses to provide some financial assistance, which are then administered by us as the local authority. I can understand that the sheer number of different grants and the movement of our district through lockdowns, different tiers, has created an enormous complexity in the process for businesses to apply and for us to administer. So I can assure members and businesses that officers are doing their absolute very best to make the application process as easy as possible, whilst maintaining the integrity of the award process, which is required by government. Officers have the target of paying all verified applications by the Christmas break. So if an application has been verified, the money should be with you this coming week. If businesses are contacting members, I would ask for them to be referred to our website, which is being reviewed constantly and updated in line with the most recent changes and the ongoing circumstances. As you're all aware, the government are changing the rules almost weekly, and that is making it very difficult for our officers to administer and turn around these grants as quick as they can. But as I say, we have made the promise to ourselves that those that have already been qualified will be paid out in this coming week before the Christmas break. If any business owner is experiencing severe hardship, we will of course seek to accelerate those applications. It's a constantly moving target, and we are doing our utmost to stay on top of it and get the grants out to our businesses as fast as humanly possible. Thank you.
Councillor Owen.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, it's actually a question for Councillor Patel, but given he's not here, but I just wanted to raise the fact Qualis have some concerns over their buying commercial assets at this time, with a lot of businesses talking about the fact that their workforce will now be working from home a lot and reducing headcount in offices. we seem to be buying up a lot of offices outside the district at, quite frankly, not that attractive yields given the current climate. Should we still be going down this commercial property route, or should we be reassessing?
Could the leader take this, or shall we ask Councillor Patel?
No, Chairman, in this case, I think actually Councillor Kaufman might be the best person to answer and give a more in-depth
response. Councillor Kaufman?
Madam Chairman, if that's okay, yes, I'm happy to do that. I'm the chairman of the Risk Committee, and we have bought 2 assets. One is a Wickes DIY store in Morden, and one is an office building in Leatherhead. We haven't bought a rash of properties. It's only 2 properties. One is an office building, one is a Wickes store that we all know and love. And we're getting a blended yield of about 7%. And actually, that's very attractive. If you look at interest rates banking wise, you're down at 0. Shortly, we'll be in negative interest rate territory. What's actually going to happen is we're going to see in 2 or 3 years' time, inflation. That's the only way that we're going to get out of the hole that we're in. We've got to devalue money. So money is going to go down in value. Assets are going to go up. Assets always, over the long term, go up. But what we have to do is buy carefully. And I've been in the business since 1977. I know I don't look that old, but I have. So I understand what we're doing. I've been to see the assets. I know the quality they are. I know that they're robust. I know that they're not over rented. The office building in Leatherhead is let to Hyundai and a company called Zotis. They're both multinational, multi-billion-pound businesses. And the rents they're paying are about £28 a square foot, which is very good value for fully refurbished. It's not a trendy office building. It's a solid institutional grade office building. It's got a 10-year income stream, and it's a good, solid asset. And it produces, actually, both properties are producing a gross income to us of just under £1.4 million a year. Robust income. Now, the council are lending Qualis the money at an interest rate. So Qualis are already paying a premium price for the money. And we are getting a significantly surplus yield because we're getting about 7% blended on secure assets. So it's not the Wild West. It's a very measured approach. I'm aware of offices. I can't wait to get back into my office personally. So the future of the office is robust. You've got to be very, very careful what you buy. We are being very careful with what we're buying. Thank you.
Councillor Doro.
Thank you, Chairman. My question is to the portfolio holder for planning sustainability, Councillor Nigel Bedford. I welcome the decision in Natural England to accept the mitigation strategy. I think that's really good news. I ask if you could give some indication to those whose businesses and lives have been held up by the delay for nearly 2 years now, what the next steps are and what actions are being put in place to expedite this matter. Thank you.
Councillor Bedford.
Thank you, Councillor Doral, for that question. Yes, I am indeed pleased to announce that the air quality mitigation strategy has finally been agreed with Natural England. It's taken officers at our highest level and those of Natural England who have worked tirelessly in the last few weeks to get this mitigation strategy over the line. I must say the documentation has been scrutinised line by line and word by word where we are. And to reinforce that, I have a letter in front of me from Natural England where their last comment on signing off the document was, "We have also identified a typographical error in paragraph 5.34, which refers to Epping Forest AC rather than Epping Forest SAC. That's how detailed their scrutiny has been on our documents. And I also have to thank Dame Ellen Mullane for her intervention, after which we had the lead officers from our district personally intervene and it helped drive this forward. Without her assistance, we would still be without a policy that's been agreed. Natural England even went further by commissioning an expert on air quality to assess our proposals and give advice. Her name was Caroline Chapman, and she was an air quality specialist who worked for DTA Equality. And I think without her assistance, we would have still had issues going forward but she has actually managed to find a way through and a path. I want to remind members that at earlier council meetings, it was reiterated how important this document was to members. Members reminded me how the businesses and builders were going bust, and that we should not get this if we do not get this policy approved. The strategy affects everyone in our district, from those that just want to build a granny annex to the local small-time builder who's building 2 or 3 houses where originally there was just one property. Let's not beat about the bush here. Long-term builders in our local community have gone bust, and many more will follow suit if this document is not actually adopted by the council or by calling it in. Let it be said that we, the Conservatives, have pushed this policy to limit. It's been scrutinised out of existence. The best minds in the country have looked at this, and to such a point, Natural England are now going to use EFDC as an exemplar of producing air quality mitigation strategies. Their templates will be used across the country. And this can also be mirrored throughout the country where there are concerns around protections of special areas of conservation. I hope that members can support the strategy. They don't call it in, as there's no more to gain. It's been scrutinised beyond belief. Now it's the time to let this policy go live and let officers work and start releasing planning permissions, which I hope can start just before Christmas. I have to report as well, in anticipating the strategy being adopted, that the planning team are already looking at applications, and you will note that they have in place a methodology for approving those releases. A word of caution, which I must give, is that this is an interim strategy and still requires the adoption of the local plan. And with the appropriate wording in the policies DM2 and DM22 to refer to the strategy. If the inspector decides she's not satisfied with this interim policy, it could all fall apart. So it would be good to get as many applications released as possible now Natural England have actually agreed to the strategy being put in place. Members, I will ask questions, but if I'm unable to answer tonight, I am sure I can get a response to you as soon as possible. I hope that answers your question, Councillor Doyle.
Thank you. Councillor Macready.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. My question/comment is regarding the 5 sites in Epping Town to be developed by Qualis. Whilst I really appreciate the greening initiative for these sites, it would be helpful to be reassured this is not just a token gesture, but that it will be planned and managed in a responsible and sustainable way. Thank you.
Councillor Whitbread.
I think it goes without saying, Chairman.
Councillor Stocker.
Sorry, Chairman. I saw your lips move, but I didn't hear anything. My question is for the leader. I'm very pleased to learn from previous questions that the work on the civic offices is progressing well. I'm sure that, like him, we're all looking forward to seeing the new facility and what it has to offer. Can the leader please give us an update on when it will be ready and what services it will include?
Right.
Councillor Whitbread.
Yeah, thank you very much, Councillor Stalker. Civic office, as I said earlier, will be ready by the Q4. It's making really good progress. The workmen in there are doing a really good job. I had a look around, must be a good couple of months ago now, and it was making good progress then. They were moving towards a second fix. It's going to be amazing when it's done. From the point of view of the multiple uses it will have on the ground floor. Obviously, you heard Councillor Whitehouse asked me earlier about the library, and of course negotiations are ongoing. We're talking to a number of other partners that we discussed, and it's going to bring forward an exciting future for the council with hubs and such around the district as well. So it's not just about the civic offices in Epping, because we're a district that covers 5 major centres, rural areas, urban areas, and as Councillor Murray reminded me, Loughton is the bigger town. And it's about trying to reach out to those areas as well. But the important thing about this, it will be an office fit for the 21st century. Of course, Councillor Stalk will be aware that some people accuse me of this being my vanity project. This isn't my vanity project. This is my project to actually put Epping Forest in the right place to move forward. And when you heard our passionate officers talking about the hub at the last cabinet meeting, you can really get a feel for where we're going to and how this is going to transform how we work as Epping Forest District Council into the future. And when we get through this blooming pandemic and we start to want to encourage our high streets to thrive again, and we want businesses to start again, and not everyone wants to work from home, we will have office spaces for business in there as well. This is really exciting, and it's the way of the future.
And thank you. And that concludes the questions without notice and within our time. So thank you, members, very, very much. And thank you, cabinet members, as well, for answering. So item 9 is motions. And we have a motion proposed by Councillor Stephen Murray and seconded by Councillor Stephen Neville. So could I actually ask Councillor Stephen Murray to read the motion?
Thank you, Chairman. You want me just to read the motion at the moment, yeah? That the council notes and 1 recognises and celebrates the contribution and hard work of the voluntary sector and the many community groups working throughout Epping Forest. 2, puts on record our thanks to the many volunteers for their many hours of service to our local community. And 3, resolves to continue to support the voluntary sector and as many community groups as possible throughout 2021 and beyond. That's the motion, Chairman, and obviously at some stage I would like to speak to it.
Yes, you could actually expand now if you may.
Okay, I can do that. Okay. I hope that this is a motion that's going to get unanimous support. I'll be very surprised if it doesn't. I think it's something that we should regularly do anyway. Thank the voluntary sector and the volunteers for all the wonderful work that they do within our community and making it a place that ticks and a place that supports one another and a place where we all want to live. But I think this year, for fairly obvious reasons, it's even more important that we pass a motion like this, because it's unprecedented times, Madam Chairman, and we've seen some negative aspects and we've seen some bad aspects coming from the behaviours of people. But overall, what I've drawn from our community has been really, really positive. And our community groups have done an absolutely excellent job during the COVID crisis and continue to do so. Countless volunteers have spent hours and hours of their own time, perhaps working in different ways because they've taken sensible risks, not dangerous risks, but they've done their best to continue their impressive service. And of course, I know that we will resolve to carry on and support them. Now, all members here will have their own voluntary groups that they think are worthy of particular mention. And I've made general remarks so far, but I do just want to draw members' attention to groups that I think have certainly caught my attention and been particularly impressive. But that isn't to negate the work of other groups. Citizens Advice Bureau across the district have had to work in a completely different way, but they've kept their advice lines open throughout the crisis. So I wanted to mention the work of the Citizens Advice Bureau, hence my declaration at the start of the meeting. I particularly want to mention Loughton Voluntary Care, because that's entirely voluntary. there isn't a single person in Loughton Voluntary Care that receives any remuneration. They might get expenses if they're volunteer drivers, but they don't get any remuneration at all. They've been going for 40 years, and during COVID-19, they've carried on doing their outstanding work, driving people to medical appointments, collecting shopping and prescription, operating their helpline. I want to mention the COVID-19 mutual aid groups that sprung up almost immediately. I think their effectiveness across the district varied from town to town because it depended on the volunteers. But I can only speak about my experience in Loughton, and they were able to move faster than the statutory authorities. That's no criticism, but they just can. And they moved within 2 days of the announcement of the lockdown. That did come very quickly. Nothing to do with me, but I supported it. We had a mutual aid group in my ward within those 2 days that had 40 or 50 people on a WhatsApp group helping people in the community that didn't have younger members of their family living nearby, and that was mirrored across Loughton and I'm sure in other towns. And then the final 2 organisations I want to mention, because they really have been at the sharp end. A number of members tonight have mentioned the desperate straits that people who never thought they would be in desperate straits are and have been in the last few months and will continue to do so. I see it personally, along with dozens of other volunteers, and I know Janet Whitehouse does as well, on a Tuesday and a Wednesday, and that's the Epping Forest Food Bank, who have kept their services going. They've moved to a delivery service, but very effectively. For example, yesterday's shift in Loughton, but it crosses the district, helped 58 people, provided 3 days worth of emergency food parcels for 58 people across our district. And then finally, Free Food for You, Madam Chairman, that has been set up just 6 months ago and is now an organisation that is helping dozens and dozens, if not hundreds of people across our district 5 times a week. So well done to our voluntary sector. Your contribution is noted, and Epping Forest District Council, I'm sure by the vote tonight, will show that they're 100% behind your efforts. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
May I just say, Councillor O'Mara, that we've got over 3,000 volunteers. I know you mentioned in name, but to be honest with you, if we start, there are so many extraordinary people that they have done, just ordinary people doing extraordinary things. So I think the motion should actually be more about the volunteers themselves instead of named volunteers, because we are missing out others, that there are so many in the district. But thank you very much. Councillor Neville, you seconded that motion. Would you like to speak?
I would. Thank you very much. Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, it is a privilege to second this motion. It is something we should be doing every year at the end of the year, remembering what's been, and especially this year more than any other. We've seen volunteers really mucking in and really working really hard for their communities in times which 12 months ago none of us could have predicted would be happening. The voluntary sector has been called on like no other. Food bank has been used. Free Food for You has been set up to deal with that. But I want to take a special mention of the mutual aid groups that were set up. Now, if anybody was thinking community spirit had died or was on the wane, I'm afraid this counters that.
you know,
I think we have a problem with the Councillor Neville.
or prescriptions, to just do acts of kindness to one another. That was just amazing and fantastic. And it's a great privilege to just see all of my community in Buckhurst-Hill and to know that it's happening right across Epping Forest as well, that so many people are devoting their time to care for other people in this time of need. I hope it carries on beyond that, because it shows us in such a good light as an area, Epping Forest. Yes, there have been people who haven't perhaps followed the rules, and that's put people at risk. But overall, I think there is a spirit of real community a real good community spirit going on in Epping Forest. And I think this motion, I don't see any reason why everybody in this council should not be supporting it. I'll leave it there.
Thank you. Anyone else would like to speak? Councillor Whitehouse, John White.
Thank you, Chairman. I mean, there have been more controversial motions put forward to this council in the past, but this is a particularly timely motion, so I think it's right that we discuss it and hopefully that we agree it. I mean, earlier today and yesterday, I spent some time up at St Margaret's Hospital with some volunteers from Voluntary Action Epping Forest, helping support the professionals to implement the vaccination strategy up there. And there were many people extremely pleased and relieved with the fact that they'd got their vaccination or their parents' vaccination, the first part of that done. And just on the way to there from my house, I passed St John's Church, which hosts all sorts of voluntary activities and events in the normal course of the year, such as the Horticultural Society show run by volunteers, the food bank down the road at St John's Hall, and so forth. I passed charity shops, for cancer research and for Oxfam, where volunteers help raise money for good causes. I passed the RVS Cafe at the Outpatients, which is run mainly by volunteers. And of course, the RVS also coordinate a lot of the NHS volunteer responder scheme that was set up to help deal with the pandemic. From where I was, I could see the Scout Hut through Steinards Hill, which is run by volunteers, services for our young people. And there are many, many, many other voluntary organisations and volunteers who help, all age groups, all needs. Some because they've got a personal commitment to that or family experience, that particular issue. Sometimes because they see a problem and want to be involved in addressing it. And sometimes, and this is equally important, volunteers get back from doing volunteering as well. The very act of volunteering helps build social bonds, helps people, get out and build social connections and build stronger communities. So volunteers help others, but the act of volunteering itself is an act that people quite rightly get benefit from as well. So I'm pleased we're going to recognise and do that today. And in doing so, I think it's important we also recognise that volunteering is something that works best when it's done alongside and to complement the professional and public services and not as a substitute for them. I mean, there are some services which, frankly, I wish volunteers didn't need to be involved in, because I think we should, as a country, be able to feed ourselves without resorting to charity. But that's an important gap that volunteers plug. In other areas like libraries, for example, volunteers have a really important role in terms of supporting and encouraging community participation in libraries. But professional librarians have a particular set of skills and a particular bit of knowledge, which is also important to make the most of the library service. So, and as we've seen with our own staff in community development, for example, an awful lot of their work involves working, with and alongside volunteers, as does Country Care, indeed, and we get extra value out of these services because of the professional expertise of staff alongside the volunteer enthusiasm and commitment and belief in their communities. So I'm grateful to Councillor Neville and Councillor Nye for putting forward this motion, and I, alongside with I think most members, will be voting for it this evening. Thank you.
Thank you very much. If no one else would have any comments, I'm sorry, Councillor Whitbread.
I've had my hand up for ages.
Which Councillor Whitbread, Chairman?
I beg your pardon. Councillor Chris Whitbread and then Councillor Plummer.
Thank you, Chairman. Chairman, you've certainly got before you this evening a motion that deserves the support of the whole council. I think that goes without saying. Epping Forest has always had a proud tradition of volunteers and voluntary organisations. You've heard of a number of them already mentioned tonight before we got to the motion. When you think of St Clair's Hospice and some of the other organisations that all bring themselves as part of our rich tapestry of our communities across Epping Forest. They're all important. But what's different now is over the past 8 months, we've had a new generation of volunteers come forward as well. 3,000 volunteers across Essex during the pandemic have come forward. Not everyone wants to be involved in one of the major organisations, and nor should they be, because sometimes it's the small acts of kindness. It's that neighbour who will pick up the shopping for you when you're shielding or in self-isolation. And we all know examples of that. Doing that, dropping something around to someone's house because they can't get to the chemist to pick up their prescription. It's those type of things are just as important as being part of the CAB or St Clair's Hospice. Everybody is important. And I think that's what's come through from the pandemic. What makes us a great community is that people are prepared to go the extra mile for each other again. And as Councillor Murray said, we've got some really bad examples through this pandemic. It's done some funny things with people, but the good outweighs the bad. And I think that's the real answer here. And as we go forward, and I'm not sure how you do this, but we need to keep people engaged in the voluntary sector. We need to keep people doing those small things because we're better as a community together than those people who seek to disrupt and destroy it. And we've seen examples of that in Epping Forest, where people have been doing good and other people have seek to cause harm and chaos from it. We've got an example in our own midst for that. But what I would say is, as a council, we've got a proud reputation of supporting charities and good people doing good things. Our service agreement with the CAB, I think, is exemplar and something that I look forward to seeing continued into the future. I think it's really important. I look forward to working with our partners in the community hub. I think that's important. But most importantly, and I think this is something probably for a select panel or a task and finish panel to look at, is how we keep people engaged after the pandemic, how we keep that community spirit alive. So, Chairman, I support this motion this evening, and I call upon every councillor to give it its full, wholehearted support for the future.
Thank you. Councillor Plummer, then I have 2 more councillors, Councillor Chamber and Councillor Holly Whitbread.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I apologise for interrupting a moment ago. I shouldn't have done that. I'm sorry. Firstly, I'd like to thank Councillors Murray and Neville for proposing and seconding this. We do have a lot of volunteers who do great stuff. Obviously, here in Waltham Abbey, a support group for COVID was set up within days of lockdown starting and stuff like that, and they've been brilliant. But also, as others have said, we do have lots of other individual volunteers who just do stuff because they do stuff. There's a chap on our street who's barely stopped since the lockdown started and ongoing from that. I do agree with Councillor John Whitehouse that there's a lot of stuff we shouldn't need volunteers for because they should be paid. but in the circumstances we have, so many people have helped and so many people have got stuck in, and they really do deserve this recognition from the District Council. Can I just say, in reference to what Councillor Whitbread just said, I think the stronger communities would be the best panel to organise something about keeping people involved. I think that's pretty much our remit. But anyway, by the way, thank you, and I do hope that this gets complete support tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Plummer. Councillor Chambers, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Totally agree that, and I totally support this. So thank you, Councillor Murray, for bringing this forward. I mean, what I don't particularly like about this evening is the fact that we are mentioning names, because we run the risk of offending the people that we don't mention. So I think it's very important that we thank everybody on record. And of course, the comment that was made that we shouldn't have to have volunteers. Well, we're in a national pandemic. We wouldn't have had enough people. So that's slightly political, but I fully support this motion in its entirety. And I would like to thank the vaccinators who are volunteering in the NHS at the moment, because they're going to be the people that are going to give us our vaccines, and that's the light at the end of the tunnel for us in the summer. So I'd like to put on record for them. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Holly Whitbread.
Thank you, Chairman. I think many members have kind of summed up very well tonight, and I think we've got a community that we should be proud of and have been brilliant throughout this pandemic. When I took over the community services part of my portfolio in May, I got to see just a glimpse of some of the brilliant volunteer work that goes on throughout our district. And with our partnership work, and I know Councillor Whitbread mentioned the SLA we have with CAB, but also Food Bank and VAF, and that's really important. And that partnership working, which will be kind of brought to life in the community hub, is so important for the management and running of a successful district. I would quickly, and I know we're not doing shout outs this evening, but I would like to just flag the efforts of the Red Cross, slightly separate from COVID. We did have a crisis in Epping during recent months with the fire at Woodland Grove, and the Red Cross came along with our officers, who also did a fantastic job and really supported those people who were displaced. And I was so impressed, and I just wanted to take this opportunity to thank them for their efforts on that day. The other people I would like to thank are actually our own officers with their volunteer efforts, because I know that many officers went above and beyond their usual role, calling vulnerable tenants in our sheltered housing scheme and older residents too, to make sure they were okay. Also the real community shield effort. Another thing I would like to remind members about is our grant aid, which we give out every year to numerous organisations across the district. And that is something I would always encourage members to encourage local organisations in their wards to apply for, because it is a real good thing we do locally. And I thank Jill Wallace and Carly and the team for all the work they do there. So that's pretty much all I wanted to say. I think from the kind of individual neighbour to the wider community organisations and charities, we've done brilliantly as a district, and thank you to everyone who's been so brilliant volunteering this year. And I hope that continues well into the new year with the new army of volunteers which have been created. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you all. I think we have listened to a lot of comments. Now, I don't know if Jackie, could you actually advise? How are we going to vote?
Yes, Chairman. Well, normally I would call out everybody's name and they just say whether they're for, against or abstain, or we could just vote on a thing, or just ask if anybody's against or abstaining.
I think we'll do the latter, if that's all right.
Yeah.
Could you do that for us then?
Yes. So I take it for this motion that everybody is for it, but if anybody is against it or abstaining, could they raise a hand, please? Right, Chairman, I've checked through and there's no hands raised, so I think this has everybody's in favour of this motion.
Perfect. So this motion has passed.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, everyone. Item 10, Qualis business plan. I know that Councillor Patel is not here to take this, but I would ask Councillor Chris Whitbread to take this item, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Chairman, I will start, but I shall be ably supported, no doubt, by Councillor Bassett and Councillor Kaufmann, who sit on the board on behalf of the council. And obviously, I'm presenting on behalf of Councillor Patel, who can't be with us this evening. This is a report that went to Cabinet back at the beginning of December, which members had a good chance to question at the time. The business plan presented was a one-year business plan for Qualis Group. The shareholder agreement, as agreed by Epping Forest District Council back in February of this year, requires a 1 year and a 4-year business plan to be presented side by side each year. However, as the permanent Qualis board has only just been appointed, the board has asked for an additional time to consider its plans for the next 4 years. Given the short time the new board has had to consider their medium-term strategy, Cabinet agreed that this would be a reasonable request. The single-year business plan concentrates on delivering those activities that were contained within the original business case for Qualis. Because of this, there are no significant new proposals contained within the plan that require the Council's approval. Instead, the activities contained within it are only those that have previously been approved. Whilst the business case does consider some new activities that Qualis intend to explore next year, some new commercial property, which we heard about earlier, a desire to look at more service transfers, possibly subject to general process, it does not seek authority to undertake these activities within the plan presented. If Qualis intends to progress any of these activities, then a formal request, along with a business case, will need to be made to the shareholder. At that point, Cabinet and Council will have the opportunity to consider the proposals in detail, and I would imagine that will also require the proposals to be considered by one of the select panels. Cabinet were pleased to see that the business plan projects small surpluses in each of the years contained within the plan. But Cabinet recognised that these surpluses will depend upon activities being delivered in line with the plan, assumptions and its accordance with the timeframes envisaged. Given the volatile environment, much could change in the timeframe covered by this business plan. And so we will be cautious in terms of how much gain we factor into our medium-term financial plans as a council. Once Qualis has had the opportunity to consider its longer-term direction and strategy, it is expected it will present a fully developed 4-year business plan for us to consider. In the meantime, if approved, the Qualis Group will concentrate on delivering those activities contained within the business plan. Cabinet was content with the 1-year business plan, as it only seeks to continue with those activities that the Council created Qualis for in the first place. But Cabinet are very keen to see the 4-year plan, setting out the Qualis's longer-term vision as to how they will grow and as to how the Council can benefit from this in the future. Qualis are already contributing significantly in balancing the Council's budget, and we expect more will flow as they develop and grow. Chairman, with your permission, I will hand over to Councillor Bassett and Councillor Kaufmann to make any comments that they may wish to make.
Councillor Bassett, would you like to add to that?
That's right. Councillor Kaufmann and myself had a chat before, and since he's been on the board a little bit longer and was more involved.
Councillor Kaufmann, it's up to you then.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. What I'm going to propose, because we must have absolute transparency with all members, that with your agreement, we offer a full members briefing to take place. I think it needs plenty of notice, so probably end of January or first week of February, we have a full members briefing on the Qualis investment strategy, the 2 properties that have been bought, the one that's under negotiation, and we chat through the rationale behind those properties, the risk profile of them, and perhaps we could have a presentation from an economist or someone along those lines, just to give us all a strategy, the goal that we're aiming for here, which is to assemble an institutional portfolio with limited risk, something that stands us in good stead for the long term. So it will be interesting to have everyone's input at that member briefing following a presentation. So if everyone agrees with that, Madam Chairman, I'm going to propose that, and then we can go into the absolute detail of Qualis, what it's been trying to do, what it has done, and so everyone has full transparency on it.
I think it's an excellent idea. Is there anyone who would like to be to oppose to that?
I'm happy to second it.
Thank you. Okay. Can I actually ask then that the members agree on the Qualis business plan?
Yes, Chairman.
Councillor Whitbread.
Thank you. Sorry, Chairman. I think that's a brilliant idea coming forward from our 2 board members to do that workshop. But obviously we do need to pass this particular business plan this evening.
Yes, that is what I actually asking the members if they agree. The Qualis business plan. Councillor,
My hand's been up for a long time, Chairman. The blue hand.
So it was mine.
Councillor Murray, I did say.
Lovely, thank you. He was up there before the item even started, just as you called item 10. I'm really unhappy about the relationship between this council and Qualis and the lines of accountability. And there's been a couple of issues tonight that have furthered that concern. Before I talk about the business plan, item 8 on the agenda, Madam Chairman, and this isn't a criticism of you, was questions by members without notice to the council leader or any portfolio holder. And though I personally found Councillor Kaufmann's answer as a director of Qualis very useful, and he was inadvertently put on the spot by the leader of council, and I'm not saying that even that was done deliberately, I personally don't think it was in order for a director of Qualis to be answering questions under that item. The agenda item is extremely clear. It's questions without notice from members to the leader of this council and portfolio holders. So that's of minor concern, but it backs up some of the points I want to make later. This item, and again, I accept that it was done with good intention. I'm not disputing that for 1 minute. 1 minute. This is a report from the Cabinet recommending that the council agree the 1-year Qualis business plan as attached. So it's our opportunity as members to hold the leadership of this council, the Cabinet, to account on their report as regards the Qualis 1-year report. It's not the role of this meeting tonight, I would argue, Chairman, to start hearing from Qualis directors. That item, again, is really clear. It's a Cabinet recommendation. Our questions should be, and therefore our answers during debate, should be from the leadership of this council, not from Qualis directors. We are getting the routes of communication and the lines of accountability wrong. I think Councillor Kaufmann's idea about a briefing is an excellent idea, and that is fine, because Epping Forest District Council is the sole shareholder of Qualis, and I have absolutely no problem with an all-member briefing in detail about what Qualis are doing. But I think my points are very valid on the two items that I've mentioned, item 8 and this item. It's us as ordinary members to hold the leadership of this council to account, not in a nasty way, but and that's what we're here for. We've got the elected accountability, and it's not for us to be at a full council meeting to be having direct discussions with Qualis directors. Let's look at 2 points of detail. Page 66 of the agenda, or page 15 of the Qualis report, however you want to look at it, it's the same page. When I looked at that at Cabinet and received the agenda for Cabinet, that was the first time that I thought that we had, that I known that we had bought these, Qualis had bought these buildings. And do remember that it's our money they're using and we are the sole shareholder. So I would like to know, because I don't have any problem about the financial stability of those choices, because I don't have the knowledge to make that judgment. And to be honest, even if I had the knowledge given to me, I probably wouldn't have the commercial ability to make the judgment. And I heard what Councillor Kaufman said and was very reassured by that. But I want to know whether the leadership of this council knew prior to this report being published that those purchases had been made. Were they asked as shareholders, as leaders of the only shareholders, before those purchases were made? Or was it purely a decision of Qualis within the written and legal agreement, and leading members of this council were just informed were those purchases made? I think that's a very reasonable question to ask. Did the leadership of this council know that those purchases were going to be made, and on what basis before they were made? And my final question, Chairman, because I've read this report very thoroughly, does Qualis know something that I don't, or other members don't? On page 69, and I did a lesson on American Constitution with my sixth formers today, and one thing I said to them was that absolutely every word matters, and every word matters in this report. And I'll just read a short sentence. During 2021, this is on page 69, during 2021 and 2022, the company, that's Qualis, will consider the transfer of additional services from the council, ensuring continuity and mitigating risk. Well, how do they know that there's going to be any transfer of council's services to consider? That's making an assumption, Chairman, because I don't know of any other services that we've actively considered to transfer. I mean, I'm very suspicious, as I've already said in previous meetings, that we're going to transfer a whole wave of services. And my final question, Chairman, to the leader, so I've asked him a very precise one. Did the leadership of this council know about the purchase of those properties prior to the decision to purchase them by Qualis, and obviously legal signatures on contracts and so on? And my final question to the leader of council is, has he had time now to consider, because I think he probably should have had, my point that he genuinely took on board at the Cabinet, and I was very pleased by his response. Are we going to go through a scrutiny process of any business plan before any services are transferred? And the reason why, and not all members will have heard this at Cabinet, the reason why I think the business plan has to be scrutinised before the Cabinet makes the decision is I think the call-in mechanism of a Cabinet decision is a fairly weak mechanism for scrutiny and should be used sparingly, any call-in procedure. We're talking about one of those in a later item on ONS. So has he had time to consider whether the business case for the transfer of any other services, because I think at the moment it's dark outside, about 8 o'clock tomorrow morning is going to be light. So as light follows darkness, we will be transferring to more services. That's a given, I think. So will scrutiny have due process in scrutinising? Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Whitbread. You are muted, Councillor.
Thank you. And thank you, Councillor Murray, for a series of good questions. I was very clear just a short time ago about scrutiny and the role of scrutiny. And if there was a business case coming forward for a service to be transferred, I would anticipate it being seen by a scrutiny panel, because personally, I prefer it to go to scrutiny before it comes to Cabinet for comments. So that's certainly within my thought patterns, and I took it on board at Cabinet, and I certainly think that would be the case. But I would say at this stage, I've not seen any business plans yet for service transfer. I think you're right, Councillor Murray. There are things that we may be able to do better as Qualis than we do as a council. The service repairs at the moment is going really, really well, and has brought some real benefits and savings to the council. So I think things have to be looked at individually and the best business plan, because at the end of the day, and I say this completely genuinely, my drive is to make sure that we protect frontline services and keep council tax low. If we didn't have Qualis and the benefits that Qualis will bring to this council, I think you'd be looking at very high council tax increases, and I think you'd probably be looking at cutting services. So I wouldn't undermine Qualis and hope in some way I get this perverse feeling that people don't want it to succeed, because actually the future of the council depends upon us creating more income. With regards to the board members this evening, I want to make sure that, and it's quite right that I'm the one being held to account and questioned at full council, and I agree with you completely on that. Councillor Kaufmann on screen signalled that he could answer that question in detail, and I think I was right to invite him to do so, because actually the information that you got from that was to the benefit and transparency of this council, and I think that was important. When we took this business plan to Cabinet, it was a two-part report. There was the part of the report that was given by Councillor Patel, who sits for the council side, and there was a business plan presentation given by Ms. Jevons, who is on the Qualis board. So I, this evening, took the decision that I thought it would be a good idea to have the opportunity for our two board members, who are non-executive members of this council, to comment if that was useful to members. If members didn't find that useful, we won't do it again. But I was trying to be open and transparent and give members the opportunity to get as much information as possible. With regards to the two properties that have been purchased, yes, I was aware when they were being purchased, and so were other members. I know that full due diligence was done, and these were the first properties that were purchased by Qualis. We gave Qualis powers, but I've made sure and said that I want to be kept informed of anything that Qualis are looking to purchase. I am delighted that we are lucky enough to have Councillor Kaufmann, who sits on the Qualis board and understands commercial much better than I do. I get accused of being a property person, but Councillor Kaufmann has great knowledge of commercial property and has been superb on the board. And so I don't make any apologies for that at all. I think we've actually made a couple good purchases there. But where you are right, Councillor Murray, is perhaps what we need to look at in the future is how I best report that back at Cabinet meetings, and maybe Councillor Patel will need to bring reports forward sooner when these type of purchases we're looking to make these sort of purchases. To a degree, now remembering councils up and down this country have companies like Qualis. We're not doing anything new. But I do believe you learn as you go along on these things sometimes. And certainly that's what I'm doing, and that's what the Qualis team are doing. And my real driver on this is to make sure we can continue to deliver those services that our residents want. And that's why we're doing Qualis. I hope that answers most of those questions.
Councillor Heap.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Firstly, thank you to Andrew Small for answering the myriad of questions I sent just before the Cabinet about this report. And it goes without saying that we all want Qualis, and we need Qualis to succeed. But to do that, we must have total honesty and openness. And that brings me back to page 65, which is about the purchase of the buildings in Leatherhead and Malden, where it doesn't actually say the purchase price, which is about £19.5 million, or the commission, which is about £175,000. So we do need to have all of this information given to us, because we are the shareholder. The borough, the district is the shareholder. We are the distillation of that district by vote to being the shareholder that needs to have all this information. So it's very, very important. And I'll stop there.
Chairman?
Councillor Whitbread.
I agree. We need to be open and transparent. And to be honest, when the questions have been asked have been answered, what we need to get to a place of is where they're answered beforehand.
Yeah. Yes, you are right. So I cannot see any other members.
Chair, you have Councillor Janet Whitehouse with her hand up.
Thank you. Councillor Janet Whitehouse.
Thank you. Chairman, I also put the blue hand up. I don't know whether we're using the blue hands or not, because other people seem to say that it hasn't been noticed. Anyhow, my question is a reference to page 69, where the housing repair and maintenance service being taken over by Qualis is mentioned. Previously, if a tenant came to a member with a complaint or a concern about repairs and maintenance, we would take that up with the relevant council officer. I'm wondering what the position is between members and Qualis now that they're responsible for these services. Do we as members, are we able to go to Qualis in the same way to take up residents' concerns? If not, where do we go to take up these concerns? Thank you.
Chairman, can I pass to Councillor Holly Whitbread for this one?
Councillor Holly Whitbread.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Councillor Whitehouse. In the latest member bulletin, the Qualis contact details are in there for who to contact directly, but I'm always happy to take up casework in relation to housing, and indeed have done various times this week, and the team have been really, really effective actually. And I know I've got a press release coming in the next day or so to say how impressive the performance has been, and the transfer from EFDC to Qualis, and I've had really good feedback so far. So the answer is that yes, there are direct contacts which I can get to Councillor Whitehouse, or you can always go through me as portfolio holder. Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Owen.
Yeah, I welcome Councillor Kaufmann's suggestion of a further meeting on this, because I've got some questions on Qualis Living's balance sheet and investment yields. It's probably not worth saying in this meeting, to be honest with you, so I will follow up later on.
Anyone else? Councillor Whitehouse.
Thanks. Yeah, I don't want to go over the ground covered at Cabinet, but I do think, having heard a couple of the comments today, one of the points is that for a long time, the Cabinet and the Cabinet Finance Subcommittee set its face against investments in property or property speculation, whatever you want to call it. And Qualis was sold very much, I think, to members on the basis of investment in the district. And therefore it did come as a surprise, and certainly a change from the council established policy, to discover that through its subsidiary, if you like, the council suddenly owned two expensive buildings some distance from where our residents live and pay their taxes. But what I wanted to focus on tonight more was particularly the lack of the 4-year business plan. I don't want to stress, I hope we don't have to wait a year for the 4-year business plan, that will come forward to us rather sooner than that, because decisions that Qualis is making now will have a real impact, not just on the Qualis balance sheet and business plan in the next 4 years, but the councils as well. I mean, just one example, in the next 14 days, Qualis is due to submit the planning application for the new Epping Sports Centre. But eventually that will, as I understand the latest cabinet reports, will revert to the district council, who clearly will be responsible, possibly with a partner, for the running costs of that centre. And decisions made now about how that's built and the facilities and what's included will have an impact on the running costs and the ongoing cost to the council, or the ongoing income to the council, in 3, 4, 5 years' time and ongoing. And to be making decisions like that without knowing, the medium-term financial implications is a concern. So I do think it's important that we get the 4-year strategy sooner rather than later, and also actually have an idea beyond that. I mean, the Housing Revenue Account used to produce a 30-year financial strategy, and of course that was out of date, every 2 or 3 years as the government changed its housing policies. But clearly these are assets being built for the long term, and we need an idea of what the long-term financial implications of these assets and liabilities to the company and the council will be, because eventually it's the council that's lending the money, it's the council which is taking the income, the loan income, and essentially is on the hook. And it's good to hear that the Qualis is making profits, but essentially at the moment and for the next few years, they'll be from just 2 sources. They'll be from the investment income, and that's got to obviously be more than the cost of the loans, and it'll be from the money that we pay for the Qualis to deliver the services back to our tenants, which essentially is recycling money. The one question I had was about the pricing strategy, and what's the pricing strategy and the pricing policy for the services that Qualis management in particular provides to the council. There's been a lot of focus on the investment side of Qualis, and less, I think, on the service provision side. It'd be helpful to hear more about that in particular. But do still have concerns, I think, until we've got this longer term sense of where Qualis is going.
Councillor Whitbread, would you like to?
Chairman, we'll have the 4-year plan sooner rather than later. You've got to remember the board is only just in place, and they're working through the business plan going forward. It's very rare that you'd ask a commercial company, which we might be the single shareholder of, to give a more than a 4-year forecast at any one time, because the world changes on a regular basis. But the one thing is, we're in this for the long haul, and obviously looking to get the best out of it as we can for Epping Forest. As I said earlier, this is our way of improving our income streams and making sure we protect people's long-term futures and protect the frontline services we care about, and making sure we keep council tax low. And I remind you again, and I think this is something people need to bear in mind, it's only by having a vehicle like Qualis that you'll be able to deliver things like a new Epping Sports Centre, because we can make decisions as a council which values profit in a different way sometimes. So you wouldn't be delivering a new sports centre in Epping, or any new sports centres in the current marketplace. Qualis enables us to do that.
Councillor Bassett.
Thank you. Just to add to that one, can I say we've already started work on the 4-year business plan, and we're hoping to present it in the first half of 2021. So it's in hand, it's on its way, but obviously everything is very volatile at the moment, but you will have it as soon as possible.
I cannot see any other members.
Chairman, we have hands up from Councillor Kaufman, Councillor Phillip and Councillor Plummer.
Thank you. Councillor Kaufman.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I'll be very quick. Just hearing some of the comments, I do feel in the firing line, and some slightly compromised in my role as a councillor, which is not the case. I'm a non-executive director, and I'm trying to fulfil my role to protect what Qualis is doing. So I just want to assure you that there's a very experienced board in place now with some very good people focusing on the risks associated with Qualis, a massive amount of work going on to bring forward the 5 sites in Epping, which are highly complex in their own way. And it's only by us being in control can we ensure that they will be delivered. So to bring forward 5 sites in a challenging market, 271 residential units proposed. It's a significant amount of development. And we've got a very experienced team bringing that forward. So it was a bit of a difficult situation where somebody had to stand up and say, I will do this role. It's a challenging role, and I'll do the best of my ability to make sure that it's delivered as we say it will be. Thank you very much.
Councillor Philip, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, I wanted to come in a little bit on the financial side of this. As the leader has already outlined, the aim of Qualis is to make sure that we can continue to deliver the services and to keep our council tax at an affordable level for our residents. Our own medium-term financial strategy goes out to 4 or 5 years, but we do revisit that every year. The Housing Revenue Account 30-year business plan is a completely different beast, driven by completely different levers that make a longer-term projection at least reasonably accurate. In terms of what was said around the council previously not doing property investment, that's quite correct, and it ties in very nicely to what Councillor Kaufman just said. Qualis have got an experienced team, an experienced board whose business is doing this. This is not council's business. That's a very good reason why we as a council didn't do it previously. And also touching on the point around the locations of the properties, Qualis would be a very strange commercial beast if it put all its risk in one particular area. That is not a good business model to have. You need to be spreading your risk, not just in terms of the types of properties that you're investing in, but also the location of them. So just to invest in Epping Forest would be a very bad idea for a business that we want to be successful. Chairman, I think this is a sensible stretch. I think we would all like to see that 4-year business plan as soon as possible. I welcome the fact from Councillor Bassett that that is on its way, and I would just encourage the board to let us have sight of it as soon as possible.
Councillor Plummer.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm just wondering what contingencies are in place should we become part of a unitary authority? Because has any consideration been given to that? Are there any reports about that? And would the intention be that Qualis remains owned and controlled by Epping Forest, or would it be merged with other councils, with other similar companies that other councils have? What is the contingency around that? And is there a report about it? And if not, could you please produce one? Thank you.
Councillor Whitbread.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Chairman, there's no reports on local government, no white paper yet on local government reform. And to be honest with you, I think with all the pandemic and everything else, it's on the back burner very firmly at the moment. So no, that's not on our agenda at this time. Obviously, what I would say to you, as you look around the adjoining district councils that we might, if we were asked to partner with anyone, we'd probably be asked to partner with. They've all got their own development companies as well, and pipelines of business and investment properties.
I cannot see any other hand, to be honest with you, but
Councillor Heap, Chairman, has got a blue hand up.
who's that?
Councillor Heap, Chairman, has a blue hand up.
Councillor Heap.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, I think Councillor Whitbread's just hit the nail on the head of some residual worry about Qualis and what happens in 2024 if we do become a unitary authority, because it will all be merged into one big company, a series of takeovers, and then a private equity firm will come in and take it. And then effectively, the fear is the residents will be left with the debt and the new company moves forward. That's it.
Yeah. Chairman, that's not going to happen, because at the end of the day, we need this pipeline of property. We need Qualis to be successful. And if there was a successor council, they would need an even bigger development company to be successful, because that's how you're going to get the income and drive your authorities forward and protect those frontline services we all care about while keeping council tax low.
Anyone else would like to speak? Right. On page 47, we have to agree the Qualis business plan. Do I have your agreement?
Agreed.
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 Agreed. Item 11, Local Council Tax Support Scheme 21-22. Councillor Kane, can you please take the report?
Thank you, Chairman. Something a little less contentious. This item comes before Council each year. This year, once again, there are no proposed changes to the Local Council Tax Support Scheme. Consequently, there's been no need to go out to public consultation. The scheme remains cost neutral, and in legislative terms, the scheme needs to be approved by 11th of March next year. So I just asking Council to note the recommendation.
Noted.
Noted.
Members, I take it you noted the recommendation.
Noted.
Thank you. Item 12, Overview and Scrutiny Committee. Could I ask Councillor Sartin to take that?
Thank you, Chairman. As members will see, this is the progress report from November 2020, our last meeting on the 19th of November. It is just for noting. Can I just, though, perhaps get one correction, which I should have noticed earlier, just in paragraph 1, the second line, I believe it should be Mr. John McGill as opposed to Dr. John McGill. But otherwise, if I could ask members to note this report. Thank you.
Members, can we note this report?
I have my hand up, Chairman,
Sorry,
physically and blue
Councillor.
hand.
Sorry, Councillor Murray.
I always read the agenda very carefully, and I particularly read items that are for noting even more carefully. Maybe it's just my suspicious nature, Madam Chairman, but there are quite a few items that need some little spending time here just to note it isn't acceptable in my view. Item 6, Madam Chairman, on page 75 is to do with the restricted covenant call-in procedure as regards Epping Forest College. I think it is appropriate at this juncture to express some thanks to Councillor Pond, Councillor Patel and the officers for the significant improvement that was made. But I have to be honest and say it wasn't good enough in my opinion. And I just want members to know, because it is our college, though it's situated in Loughton, it is the college that serves Epping Forest. I just want members to know that certainly among the people I represent, and I would say a much wider body of opinion in Loughton, there's a great deal of upset and suspicion about the role of the college and what the college has done in our local area. I'm not going to tell members the 30-year history, but there are some significant events that means a large segment of our local community have very little faith. And I will just mention a couple. A sports hall built by public subscription. So ordinary working class folk, essentially from the East End, not a lot of money in the Debden wards, built a community centre through public subscription. That got transferred to the college, not New City College. It's had a number of different names. Always quite suspicious of organisations that are constantly changing their name and legal status as well, because they're harder to pin down. Took it over. Not a penny compensation to the Debden Community Association. Not a penny compensation. Knocked it down, sold the land, and we now have a very upmarket, prestigious old people's home there. Nothing wrong with that. Absolutely everything wrong in the process on how they secured that site. We've got the situation, Madam Chairman, where they've sold a massive parcel of land for millions of pounds. What guarantee have we got, Madam Chairman, that that money's going to be spent in this district? Because New City College has campuses in Havering, Redbridge, Hackney, and I think Islington, but I stand to be corrected on that. But it has a number of campuses around. We've had no guarantee that that massive capital sum is going to be spent on our college, New City College. So that was one item. So I don't think that was just for noting. Number 9 on page 76, and I welcome what Councillor Holly Whitbread said earlier, but I just wanted to flag up that we received that report, and it was really good to hear about the apprenticeships within across the council, and particularly within the housing area. A large number of the apprentices have been former pupils within Loughton, and whenever I see them, they always speak very, very highly of our apprentice scheme. And I'm really pleased, Councillor Holly Whitbread, that you saw our new intake. And then I do just want to spend a little time on item 12, and that's not to rehearse the argument tonight, because we're, 6 days away from Christmas, so it's not appropriate for me to get bitter and angry again. But I don't think we can just note what happened on item 12 either. It was a new chairman and vice chairman for the Stronger Place Select Committee, and it was an opportunity for the minority groups to be treated a little bit more fairly, and they weren't. And on reflection, something happened at that meeting that I think concerned me even more. And it was nagging away at the meeting, and it wasn't until about a week ago I realised what it was. Not only was there a vote en bloc, there was a strict vote en bloc within a scrutiny committee to do that. Not a single member of the majority group that was on that committee were prepared to justify. I'm not saying they have to, but I did ask them to explain why they were doing what they were doing. And I accept that they don't have to. But it was actually the leader of council, a member of the cabinet, who explained what the majority group had done on ONS. So that told me everything that I needed to know. Just 2 final things, Madam Chairman, and I don't think I've got anything else to say tonight, you'll be pleased. I think it would be nice to have an early indication in the new year from the leader whether in 2021 they were prepared to accept nominations for any chairs of the Select Committee or chair of the District Council from a non-Conservative group, because I think, you know, you need time for people to think about whether they want to hold posts. So could I ask, please, publicly, and that's why I've chosen a council meeting to do it, could I ask the Leader of Council at the earliest opportunity in the new year to give other non-Conservative group members an indication whether they would seriously entertain a non-Conservative nomination for Chair of Epping Forest District Council or a Select Committee. And finally, it's been a tough year for many people, but I'll tell you one job I wouldn't have liked to have done on this council, and that is to be Leader of Council. So I want to say again, Councillor Chris Whitbread, I'm not necessarily saying you've got everything right, but I think your leadership since March has not been an easy job, and I think you deserve a well-deserved family rest, and do please try and take a break. Thank you.
Councillor Whitbread.
Thank
Chris
you.
Whitbread.
Thank you, Chairman. Chairman, we are lucky as a council, as I previously said. We have excellent officers providing excellent services and doing a brilliant job. That makes it a pleasure to be leader of a council like Epping Forest. And really, you know, it's tough, but those guys on the front line are the ones really doing the tough job. So it's easy for us sitting here on Zoom meetings and having regular meetings and briefings and giving our guidance, but they're the ones actually out on the front line doing it for us and our residents on a daily basis. As to what happens next year, let's see what 2021 brings, Councillor Murray. Who knows what's going to happen next at the moment, but my group will be meeting regular and we'll be discussing what our plans are for the future, and I'm sure we'll inform other groups once we know what we're doing. But my first and foremost, my position now is to look after the interest of Epping Forest, and that should be all our focus is on from here on in, is doing the best we can for Epping Forest.
Councillor Mary Sartin.
Thank you, Chairman. Just coming back on that, I mean, obviously this is an outline and report of the actual meeting. The minutes of that meeting will be published shortly, and they are very detailed minutes going in depth into a lot of these items. Obviously, the call-in did go back to Cabinet, and they did make their decision on that. And I will just make a passing comment that I'm not surprised to have heard Councillor Murray's comments on item 12. I was going to reference it myself, but I didn't actually do so. But thank you, Chairman.
Anyone else who would like to? Councillor Pond, Chris Pond.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I wasn't going to labour this point, but the fact that the Ovian Scrutiny Committee referred back this to the decision maker for further consideration is a fairly rare occurrence in Ovian Scrutiny Committees generally. And the purport of this is for me to say, I'm looking to the leader of the council to find a way of protecting in perpetuity the remaining open space which will be left in the so-called wellness centre, so that 5, 10 or 15 years down the line, we do not have to have the same argument again, and that it should be protected for the use of the people of the district in general and of Loughton in particular.
Councillor Chris Whitbread.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Chairman, we've all learned how important green spaces are over the COVID period. I've made that blatantly obvious a number of times. And what I would suggest is perhaps early in the new year, if not before, if we get something in. I'm sure if the Chief Executive and myself and Councillor Pond were to meet and just see if there is any way we can take forward some form of method of more protection for that area. I don't know the answers tonight, but I'm happy to get involved in any dialogue.
Thank
you. Councillor Chris Pond, would you like to come back?
I just said thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Leader.
Okay. So, members, I don't see any other hands.
Chairman, Councillor Heap has got his blue hand up.
Just now. I just saw him just now. Councillor Heap, yes.
Thank you. Well, this is about Epping Forest College, and it's nothing that anybody can answer. It's more of a comment, and it's the UK fishing industry is worth about £1 billion to the economy. Music industry alone is worth about 5.7. If you add arts and entertainment and theatre and events and all of those kind of things, that probably doubles. So it's about £10 million worth of effort to the economy. And Epping Forest used to have a very, very good and thriving art department, art and music department. And we've let that slip, and it's a very, very sad thing. So it's a plea for anybody to be able to do anything to help the arts in our borough, because of our district, because it's a very, very important money earner. Nobody can answer this. No.
Thank you. Thank you for your comment. Right, I cannot see any other hands. So, members, can we note the report of the Overview and Scrutiny Committee?
No.
Thank you. Item 13, Statement of Licensing Policy. Councillor Morgan, would you take that?
Thank you, Chairman. I won't keep you long. The purpose of this report and statement is to comply and update our licensing policy under the Licence Act of 2003. This policy relates all licensing activities, including granting premises licence, club premises certificates, temporary events and personal licences in the district in respect of the sale and supply of alcohol and the provision of regular entertainment and late night refreshments, and of course, more recently, the payment licences. We had a long consultation with Colston Tees. You see on the list, they're all consulted by email or letter. Not many replies were received, so I think it means that the licensees are quite happy with our policy. When granting any licence, we always take into account the prevention of crime and disorder, public safety, and the prevention of public nuisance and the protection of children from harm. And we also, of course, make appropriate conditions on these licences. Over the years, we have taken very strict enforcement against any premises which are flouting the law, and our officers are working very closely with the police. I don't think I really need to add to the report. It's fairly comprehensive, so I'll ask that the council adopts the statement of the licensing policy. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Morgan. Members, you have the report. It's quite extensive there. Do we have any comments at all? No, can we note then and receive the report? Councillor Neville?
I'm giving my approval.
Oh,
Thumbs up.
All right.
Noted.
Noted. Thank you very much. Item 14 is regarding the call-in and urgency additional restrictions grant policy. Members, the additional grant policy needed to be in place very quickly, as there was an urgency to have the grants available to businesses. So I was satisfied that that was important, had to be dealt quickly. So I was satisfied to waive the call-in. So that is, I hope you are agreement with that, my actions.
Agreed.
Agreed.
Item 15.
Agreed.
Thank you. Item 15, joint arrangements and external organizations. I know that I have a notification that Councillor Ralph would like to say a few words about VEF, voluntary action.
Thank you, Chairman. Right, members. I've since my comment at the last meeting of the council, when I said I hadn't lost contact with VAEF, so it wasn't totally honest. What I'd lost contact with was my ability to go and attend the trustees meeting. So I had seen some of the papers, but I'm nevertheless grateful that as a result of my remarks, many members from all sides did actually point me in the right direction of some of the other papers that I was missing. Since then, since last meeting, I've attended the AGM and I've got back into the trustees meeting. In fact, I was there with the chairman, we both attended that thing. I'm still not happy with some of the things, particularly this trustees meeting that I go to, or even when we're back in again. It's probably, I don't see a way around it because they're entitled to their private meetings. But we go there and we are given certain papers, and then before they go into private thing, which I never get to see the minutes of the private session. Perhaps you agree with VAEF that I don't need to see them, but I can't feel that I'm doing the right job if I don't come back, if I don't see all the stuff. Nevertheless, we're talking. It might change. Hopefully, it will change. But it's my intention from now on to. I haven't reported every month. Well, in fact, for a year, I haven't done any reported anything. But I was going to the meetings. There was nothing to report to. But having said that, I think it might be as well if I give a very brief report, briefer than this one, each month now, and certainly until we get to the situation where I'm provided with a regular meeting. I mean, a regular meeting, a regular access. We'll see how it goes, because there's another meeting at the end of January, I think the 25th, I think it is. I haven't put that down here, but I will be attending the trustees meeting, and I will report back. In the meantime, I'd just like to say that if any members got any specific questions regarding VAF, please, if you get to contact me either by phone or email. I prefer phone, actually, but I seem to lose the emails a lot of the time. But having said that, I would like, I'm quite happy if any member has got a real query, please phone me up until we get this line of a proper line, line of report, basically. Anyway, I don't think I've got anything to add to it at the moment, and I apologise if I haven't given a report recently. But we'll leave it there, I think, but thank you.
Thank you.
Members, anyone would like to comment? Councillor Murray.
I'm not going to get into a full debate on this item, but I did want to just say two things on the basis of that. Obviously, thank Councillor Roll for his report, but to put his mind at rest, from what he was saying, VAEF operate like any other board that I'm aware of. The trustees do often have a private element of their own where other representatives aren't present. That's just normal practice. I don't think there's anything to be concerned about. I can think of one that I serve on at the moment, and I can think of another one where I used to serve, where there were council representatives from the district council and indeed the town council, and very much the bulk of the items were when they were present, but the much shorter part of the meeting was when all the other non-trustees who weren't full legal charity trust trustees left the meeting. So I don't think there's anything particularly to worry about. I think you'll find most organisations in that position operate in the same manner.
Thank you, Councillor Murray.
Sorry, Chairman, can I just thank Councillor?
Of course.
Sorry. Because it's nice. He's got a wider experience. It's the first time I've done a job with an organisation like this, and it just seemed a little bit, not quite right. But I'll take what Councillor Murray said. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Roth. I don't have any other indications for the joint external organisations reports.
Yes, Chairman, we have Councillor Plummer.
Thank you. Just quickly, I just want to mention that the VAEF email newsletters are very, very informative and useful, and any members who aren't subscribed to them, I recommend that you do. Thank you.
Thank you. Right. We perhaps in the new year we might have some new reports of the joint announcements and external organisations. Item 16, exclusion of public and press. I don't think we have. So therefore, I'm actually closing this meeting at 9:29, but I would like to wish everyone a very good Christmas, and let's have a much better new year.
Merry
Good
Christmas.
health.